Today you're going to be working on some probability experiments using spinners. So when you're in the document, I just want to walk you through it. Here's your checklist as usual. A couple things to highlight. Don't forget about this week's Flipgrid video. We're doing a lip sync battle, so I can't wait to see what you come up with. There is a link in Schoology for the Flipgrid under updates, because they are different for each class period. So I didn't link it here. It is in Schoology updates for the Flipgrid lip sync battle. If you are listening to this on Thursday, April 9th, we are going to be meeting today at 11 o'clock in the morning on Schoology conferences. And if you're not sure how to join a Schoology conference, then there's a link right here that shows you how to join it. It's pretty easy, but you just have to know where to look. If you are listening to this on Monday, April 13th, our next meeting time will be on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. So keep that in mind depending on when you are listening to this video. And finally, don't forget about working on Mathia. There are several people that have continued to do this, so I'm very pleased to see that. But if you have not been on Mathia, please make sure that you are getting on there and getting your minutes in. That's still really important. Next, we have some notes that you've seen before. We already talked about theoretical and experimental probability in the last lesson, but they're here for you as a reminder because you will need these words again in this lesson. So theoretical probability is the probability of what we expect will happen, kind of based on whatever situation we are having a chance experiment with. So whether it's dice or flipping a coin or spinning a spinner, the theoretical probability is what should happen based on the item. So flipping a coin, there are two sides on a coin. One is heads, one is tails, and there's an equal chance of getting each one. That's why it's 1 out of 2, 1 out of 2 for the probabilities for that. So if you plan to flip a coin 10 times, you would expect that it lands on heads 5 times and tails 5 times, because again, it's kind of a 50% chance for each side. Experimental probability is the probability that is calculated based on the actual trials from your chance experiment. So if you actually went and flipped the coin 10 times, you're probably not going to get 5 heads and 5 tails. Say it lands 6 times for heads and on tails 4 times. So then the experimental probability of heads based on the experiment is 6 out of 10 or 60% or 0.6. And the experimental probability of landing on tails is 4 out of 10 or 40% or 0.4. On activity 1, you are going to be going on a Desmos activity to complete some spinners. So please make sure you click on the correct link for your class period. And then I really want to talk about activity 2, making my head spin. This, you are going to be using an activity on another page. So you have to click this link here or this link up here to get to the spinners that you're going to use for the activity below. Okay, it says scroll down to 5.2, making my head spin, and you will see the spinners. So when you click this link, it's going to take you here, and you'll notice this says lesson 5 and then 5.1. Okay, right? So lesson 5, whoops, oh, it jumped. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's try that again. Lesson 5, 5.1, that's not what you need. Okay, 5.2. Then, if you saw in the directions, it says use spinners C and D only. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down in making my head spin. And this is where it gets a little confusing. Notice the name of the spinner is at the top of the spinner. So spinner A is this one. We're not going to use that, so I'm going to scroll down. Spinner B is this one. We're not going to use that, so I'm going to keep scrolling. Spinner C is here, and spinner D is here. So these are the two that you're going to use. They're right next to each other on the page, so that should make it pretty easy. And when you click spin, it's going to spin the spinner for you, I got a red 9. So I'm going to go back to my activity. It says for spinner C, theoretical probability. Give the theoretical probability of each outcome if you are spinning the spinner once. Again, the word outcome is really important to know. So that is something that can happen in your experiment, a result. So what is the probability of, and then look carefully here, this says the probability of a number greater than 2. That's what that little symbol means, probability of a number greater than 2. And then the probability of spinning a yellow. So you're going to put those here. Then you're going to actually do the experiment. So again, this was just looking at the spinner. What's the probability of getting a number greater than 2? So that doesn't include 2. It's anything greater than it. And then a probability of yellow. Then for your experiment, you are going to spin the spinner 10 times and record your results below. So the number of times that you land on these numbers is going to go in this column. And then next column is just what color is that number. So when you look at your spinner, number 1 on the spinner, number 1 is yellow. Okay, so you're going to type in yellow, and then however many times you land on 1 when you do your 10 spins. Okay. Then you're going to calculate experimental probabilities based on your spin results. So something greater than 2 and the probability of landing on yellow. Finally, you're going to reflect, which means compare your experimental probability with a theoretical probability. So compare what was supposed to happen with what actually happened. That's what this means for number 3. Okay, and then you're going to do spinner D, all the same questions. Okay, and then your final activity is comparing both spinners. So compare the theoretical probabilities for getting a number greater than 2 on spinner C and on spinner D. Explain your thinking. So obviously these two spinners are not the same, right? So make sure that you are thinking about on spinner C, blah, 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 on spinner D, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and compare means tell me maybe the similarities or the differences between them. Something's greater than, something's less than, or maybe it's equal to. Okay, those are some good comparing words. So as you think through these problems, compare, okay, be thinking about comparing the two amounts. Is something greater than something else? Is something less than something else? That's what the word compare means. Okay, so hopefully that helps you guys with today's activity. And if it's Thursday, I hope that I see some of you at 11 today. And if it's Monday and you're listening to this, then I will hopefully see you on Tuesday at 1 o'clock for our meetings.